Hey. So this is a fact I rarely reveal about myself, and I feel like most of you are going to disagree, but here it goes anyway. My second favorite FNAF game of all time is Ultimate Custom Night. My first is FNAF 6, in case anyone was curious. No one was curious, why did I add that? But saying that you like Ultimate Custom Night actually seems to be an unpopular opinion in the FNAF community. Sure, most people don't dislike it, but almost no one considers it their favorite, or really anywhere close to their favorite. Why is that? Well, I think the answer is simple. Look at the title. Now get rid of Ultimate? Yep, there we go. I think, among other issues, one of the biggest flaws of this game is that it's just a custom night. There's no main game to go along with it. Aside from the challenges, you're kind of forced to make your own fun, and I think that turns a lot of people off from UCN. I, on the other hand, really admire the almost sandbox feel to it. I mean, there's so many different possible combinations that it could easily last you a lifetime just trying to see them all, and I really like that. However, talking about UCN got me thinking, just what is a custom night? What makes a good one, and how has the series handled them in the past? Well, looking through the series, there's surprisingly less to work with than I thought there was. Without really thinking about it, try and guess how many games in the series have a custom night. I imagine most of you said something more than 4, which is how many there actually are. So let's go over the origins, implementation, and history of custom nights in the FNAF series. Of course, starting with FNAF 1. FNAF 1, the game that decided 9-minute nights were a good idea. This game's custom night is simultaneously really interesting and really boring, so let's get into it. After beating night 6, we unlock night 7, which is actually barely a night at all. Clicking on it brings us to this menu, which has each of the characters listed. From here we get to choose a value for them, 1 through 20. It's pretty easy to understand, the higher the number, the harder the enemy. This, at the time, was one of the coolest things ever. Finally, my dreams of a Chica-only night can be fulfilled. Now that we know more about these games, it's not as cool, though still interesting. It turns out the 1 to 20 AI system was already used for the enemies in the game, so adding the custom night didn't take much effort at all. But the fact that Scott Cawthon went through the effort at all just to include it, that is just awesome. He was under no obligation to give us control over the night, yet he did, and that's what makes it special. This also, of course, gave birth to the classic 20-20-20-20 mode. You give people the ability to control your game, people are naturally going to want to push it to its limits. And that's exactly what 20-20-20-20 mode does. This mode was so hard that Scott was convinced it was impossible upon release. It wasn't until a person by the name of Big Bugs managed to do it that he was convinced to add a third star to the menu for beating it. When Markiplier did it though, man, that's when the mode gained traction. I'm honestly convinced at least 10% of FNAF's popularity today can be attributed to people completing this max mode. It's so difficult and intense that of course it would become popular, it was practically born to be. I should say it was so difficult and intense though. Nowadays, with modern strategies, it's so easy that even I managed to beat it, and I suck at these games. Yeah, that's kind of the cycle custom nights go through. It comes out, people think it's impossible, strategies are developed, and it eventually becomes consistent enough to beat almost every time. But that's honestly all there really is to talk about for the first game. It was downright revolutionary for a horror game when it first came out, but at the end of the day, just what do you want me to say about this? Oh, I like the number 20. FNAF 2. FNAF 2's is like the first game deluxe edition. It keeps pretty much everything from the first game and expands upon it. It even keeps the same AI system, having it go up to 20 for some odd reason. That's especially funny here because while it'll let you go up to 20 for every character, the characters won't actually be set to 20 AI. They're all capped at some point, most rather arbitrarily. Withered Foxy at 17, Golden Freddy at 10, and everyone else at 15. This may seem weird, but looking at the uncapped version modded in, you can actually see why. If they were uncapped in AI level, the outcome would be the same every time, since they have no variation in movement. This means that the true 10-20 mode, which has higher AI levels, is actually easier than the 10-20 mode we got, which has lower AI levels. That hurts my brain to think about. But yeah, I'm not really sure why it lets you set the AI to 20 if it's not going to actually set it to that. I don't think anyone would complain if some animatronics could go up to 15 and others could go up to 17, but whatever, I guess it's more satisfying this way. Anyway, on to the actual custom night, and what is this? Do my eyes deceive me? Are those challenges? Yes, this custom night comes with a set of pre-made challenges meant to test your knowledge on the game. Now, it might seem counterintuitive to include pre-made challenges in a custom night, shouldn't the whole point be making your own fun, but to its credit, I think it works. For those of us that are not very creative, such as myself, it gives us a goal to work towards that's both fun and challenging. It's basically an easy way of adding more nights to the game. Like now the game is 16 nights at Freddy's 2, and it took basically no effort on the part of Scott Cawthon. These challenges also give room for fun pairings that you wouldn't see in the base game, like only the Withereds or only the girls. There are a few exceptions, one of which being the puppet. Even though they're not selectable in the custom night, they will always be on no matter what. Likely because they're one of 2 animatronics that don't just use the mask, so getting rid of them would likely make any night they're not on a breeze. Speaking of those 2 animatronics, slightly more weird is that Withered Foxy also appears on every night, which is slightly less understandable. I mean, I guess I get it, he's a unique mechanic like the puppet, but he's already adjustable in the custom night, meaning there will be nights where he appears even though his AI seems to be set to 0. It doesn't really matter much, I just wish the game explained this to you, since it confused a lot of people. Not me though, I never unlocked the custom night. I got to 5 AM on night 6 and then RWQFSFA6C spawned and crashed my game. I wish that was a joke. So yeah, even though it doesn't tell you, the max mode is more accurately described as 1120, not 1020 like everyone calls it. Speaking of that max mode, it is messed up this time around. It is so incredibly luck-based that even a theoretically perfect player wouldn't win at it 100% of the time. It's usually considered the second hardest challenge in all of FNAF, right behind 5020, which in case you couldn't tell, has 50 animatronics. I think it's fair for it to be hard. Oh sorry, it has 56, my apologies. This one has 45 less, and yet is almost as hard, if not harder, which is crazy to think about. It's honestly really surprising that people were even able to beat it back in the day with their primitive-ass strategies. I mean, there are scholars whose full-time job it is to solve this mode, and they still can't do it. This mode still hasn't been 100% solved. It's insanity. So, this is our format going forward. A custom night with more characters, challenges that put those characters into different categories, and a ridiculous max mode that's barely possible without a guide. Now that we've established this, let's move on to our next custom night and see how they did with the format. Let's head to Sister Location. Wait a second, huh? Yep, we're skipping straight to the 5th game, because for some reason custom nights took a little break. FNAF 3 really only had Springtrap, so I guess I can understand that, but I really don't get FNAF 4. It even has a mode called 2020-2020, but no custom night. Maybe it's because the AI is capped even earlier here than in FNAF 2? I mean, Nightmare Freddy gets capped at 6, I guess I could see that causing problems. But still, it's a bit sad to see. So yeah, I guess we're skipping to Sister Location, which funnily enough also didn't have a custom night for a bit. It was added later as a free update to the game, meaning we almost had to skip this game as well. Luckily, it was added and it's incredible. This might just be the best custom night in the series. Hell, probably one of the best things in the series. It's that good. Let's start with the max mode this time around, just to mix things up a bit. And wow dude, this is it. They perfected max modes. What I love about this one is that it's one of the hardest max modes while still being fair. It's usually considered the 3rd hardest thing in the series, behind FNAF 2 and UCN, and yet it's not luck-based. It's the kind of night where not only would a theoretically perfect player win every time, but it's almost impossible to be screwed over by RNG in this mode. Seriously, if you know what you're doing, then you don't even need to be perfect to beat this mode every time. It's also just fun. I'm not nearly good enough to beat it, but attempts at it were still fun because unlike other max modes, every death felt like my fault. I probably will beat this mode someday just because it's that good. Scott really knocked it out of the park with this one. A max mode isn't all that's important to a custom night though. Let's see how the rest of it was handled. First off, challenges make their triumphant return, and much like the max mode, they reach their peak here. Not only are there 10 challenges in the game, much like FNAF 2, but there are also now difficulties to choose from. Easy, normal, hard, and very hard. Each one adjusts the AI levels of that challenge to be higher or lower. So for example, Golden Freddy on easy has everybody at 3, as opposed to very hard, which puts everyone at 20. I like this system, as it means that people of every skill level are still able to enjoy your custom night. That being said, you're still encouraged to play on very hard because that's the only way you get the optional purple guy cutscenes. I think that's a pretty good incentive, so I don't mind this. It's also a good thing that these challenges are so in-depth because they're all you get. Yeah, despite being called a custom night, this night is not actually custom. These preset challenges are the only ones you're able to play. I just find this more confusing than anything. Surely it couldn't have been that hard to add a custom option. I mean, you did it in FNAF 2 just fine while still having a bunch of challenges, so what happened here? Whatever, I guess it's not a huge deal. I mean, when you add challenges, that's what 99% of players are going to gravitate towards anyway, so it's not like we're missing out on much. I'm just not entirely sure what the thought process was here. And while we're airing out our grievances with this night, let's discuss the elephant in the room. Despite the fact that this is a custom night, I do not recall this night being anywhere in the main game. Yes, because Sister Location has so many different gameplay styles, they decided one more couldn't hurt and made something completely original for the custom night. This is, again, not necessarily bad, just kind of weird. Let's see, this custom night isn't actually custom because you can't adjust the AI levels yourself, and it's not a night because it's basically its own original game. So the title is just a complete lie. Again though, not really a problem, just sort of funny to point out. In actuality, well, like I said, it's one of the best gameplay loops in the entire series. It's fun, fair, incredibly well designed, and it is hands down the best custom night in the series. Which is kind of a problem, we still have one more to talk about. Let's get to that, shall we? Ultimate Custom Night. Skipping over FNAF 6, we reach our 4th and final custom night, UCN. Man, really only 4? For what I consider such an iconic part of the series, and only appearing in 4 games is kind of pathetic. Whatever, we're here now at UCN, the ultimate custom night experience. You see what I did there? Man, I'm good at my job. Anyway, as you may be able to tell by looking at it, Scott clearly upped the ante here. Because this game is only... what? I wrote oinky. Because this game is only a custom night, it means Scott was allowed to go all in on the concept, and his version of that is adding like a billion characters. Characters from across the series appear here, all the way from FNAF 1 to 6. They even got FNAF World representation in there for some reason. Don't ask me, I didn't make the game. With so many characters, obviously there's a lot of fun pairings to come from this. Is it fair to say I'm disappointed by this? Like, I know technically it's better than the last few games, going from 10 challenges to 16, but like, That's it? Plus, a lot of these aren't unique from each other. We have things like Bears Attack 1 and Bears Attack 2. Counting unique challenges, we only have 8, which I shouldn't have to say, but for what should be the ultimate custom night experience, that's a bit pathetic. There's so many fun pairings you could do for these characters. Like, how about you bring back a sister location challenge and do weirdos and have the roster look something like this? I don't know, man. When 3 of your 16 challenges are just, lol, yeah, we didn't know what to do, here's a random assortment of characters that don't relate, I'm gonna ask what happened here. This leads to the challenges sort of being de-emphasized. You can probably tell by how I've been talking in this video, I enjoy the challenges the most. They're basically new mini nights, and I really love that. However, despite Ultimate Custom Night being my second favorite game in the series, I haven't completed like any of these, because I just don't see the point. They aren't creative enough for me to go, ooh, that's clever, and I honestly have more fun gameplay-wise if I just choose my own characters. Because with such a large roster, there's inevitably going to be at least a character or two that you just don't like on the list. Like, I can't stand Toy Freddy. I think he's BS and too luck-based. So now Bears Attack 1, 2, Old Friends, and Chaos 1 just aren't fun to me. And while we're complaining, let's talk about the other aspect to any good custom night, the max mode. 50-20 as it's called is just clearly the hardest challenge in the series. I mean, look at this, can you tell what's happening? Because I can't. It requires so much muscle memory, knowledge of internal clocks, and strategy that it's inaccessible for 99% of the population. This isn't a bad thing, I mean it's clearly on purpose, and it does feel pretty ultimate to have as one final challenge, but still, I will never be beating this mode, and I'm definitely not alone in that. It also has the FNAF 2 issue of being way too luck reliant. To even have a reasonable chance at beating the night, you have to get lucky pretty much every time you lift the monitor that a random character doesn't just choose to randomly kill you. Like Toy Freddy, for example. God, did I explain just how much I hate this guy? But that's pretty much it. Both for this game and the series. After this, FNAF games got a lot bigger, with Steel Wool taking over. Games like Help Wanted or Security Breach don't really have gameplay styles which would fit into a custom night, so they just didn't bother. Custom nights are a dying art form, and I honestly doubt they'll ever recover, at least in the main series. So, this is what we have to work with. And to be honest, there's a unifying theme I've seen between all of these, and it has to do with their quality. To start off, my ranking for these custom nights is Sister Location, UCN, FNAF 1, FNAF 2. Now if you've been paying attention, those last two placements may seem odd. I mean, I said FNAF 2's custom night was like FNAF 1's deluxe, didn't I? How did it rank below FNAF 1 when it's pretty much objectively better? Well, it's simple. I don't really like FNAF 2. I don't know, I just never found its gameplay too fun. That's when it hit me. So, what makes a good custom night? The answer is simple. A good game. A custom night is only as strong as its core gameplay. That's why I love Sister Location so much, while I don't really care for FNAF 2's. You can add all the fancy bells and whistles you want, like challenges, the hardest max mode ever conceived, or even exclusive characters, but at the end of the day, if your game isn't fun, then why would I enjoy it? So yeah, that's the answer to the title. How does one make a good custom night? They start by making a good game. Thank you guys for watching. This was an astonishingly useless topic to talk about, but I hope you still enjoyed it. Assuming editing goes as planned, I believe this will be my shortest video, but I hope it was still fun regardless. Until next time, I hope you guys have a good day, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.